Oops. Anyway, we have some breaking news here out of Baltimore, Maryland, as my Ravens have officially released safety Earl Thomas after, and this is the direct quote, we have terminated safety Earl Thomas's contract for personal conduct that has adversely affected the Baltimore Ravens. That is the wording they are using, and that wording is going to be key as they will be trying to void that contract, because if they don't, it will cost them around $15 million in dead cap. Obviously not something the Ravens want. So the Ravens are going to try and use that to get rid of him, and not to get rid of him, to void his contract, because that is dead money that the Ravens do not want to have counted against them, especially when the Ravens are in a situation when they want to have as much money as possible when you are trying to extend guys like Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey, Lamar Jackson in the next couple of years, as well as Orlando Brown Jr., Mark Andrews. I can go on and on. Oh, and you have Matthew Judon on the franchise tag. There's plenty of guys here, and the more money you have, the better off you are. So you want to avoid that contract so you can get the money to do it. And if the Ravens bring in a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, which obviously you guys know I don't want, but if they do that, again, you need as much money as possible. So that's what they're going to try and do. But right now, according to Tom Pelissero, this tweet from a couple of minutes ago, the Ravens will count, Earl Thomas will count $5 million in dead money this year, and then $10 million in 2021. Assuming the team can support the void, but there will be a grievance file, will be a whole situation, so we'll see what happens there, and that'll be developing over there. But something that people need to realize about not only this situation, but the Baltimore Ravens organization as a whole. As someone who is from Baltimore, I know this organization inside and out, and one thing I can tell you is that this organization is one of the best teams in football at controlling the narrative. They do not want things to get out unless if they have to get out. I'll put it this way. On the same exact day as Earl Thomas and Chuck Clark had this altercation, how many of you knew, if any, that Patrick McCary and Justin Ellis got into it as well? I'm willing to bet almost none of you. And for those of you who don't know, Patrick McCary is the guy that will either be starting at center or will be our backup center for week 1, depending on Matt Skura's health, and was our starting center for the second half of last year, and is pretty good. And Justin Ellis is a guy in defensive rotation. These are not two backups. These are two key role members of the Ravens team. So it's not like it was two backups who we cut. But no one knows about it because what? The Ravens are good at controlling the narrative. This is something that the Ravens were okay with getting out. Simple as that. And Chuck Clark is a guy that I know not a lot of people who are not from the Ravens area, not from Baltimore, just not Ravens fans in general, don't really know him. You might look him up. You see he's a 6th-round pick. No. This is a guy that the Ravens have liked for a long time. The Ravens brought him in as a 6th-round pick a couple of years back. He led the Ravens in tackles last year. He was our defensive play caller last year. And he's a guy that I expect to be in Baltimore for a long, long time. And I personally really, really like. So this is not just another safety on the team. This is, first of all, his other starting safety and the Ravens defensive play caller that he got it into. This is not just a random guy. Okay? Now, another thing, again, going back to the point about the Ravens are very good at controlling their own narrative. Last year, when the Ravens got embarrassed, and I was at that game, I can tell you, embarrassed by the Cleveland Browns, that week at practice, him and Brandon Williams got into it. Not a lot of people know about it, and the people that did know about it, no, it's not a big deal. Why? Because the Ravens are good at controlling the narrative. They didn't have that make a big deal. They kind of slipped under the rug. He's reportedly been late to a lot of meetings since the Ravens signed him back in March. All right? We all know about a situation that he had with his brother in March, but you know what? The Ravens didn't comment on it. Why? Because they're good at controlling the narrative. But you know what? As the Ravens beat writers are reporting here, this situation with Chuck Clark was the last straw. This was a long time coming. And on paper, getting rid of one of the best safeties in the NFL, obviously, does not sound like the right move to make, as we are, believe it or not, 2 weeks away from kickoff. Exactly 2 weeks away. Exactly 2 weeks from today. 14 days from today, the Ravens take the field week 1 against the Browns. All right? The timing of this is obviously not great when you want to get rid of one of the best safeties in the league and a guy that is really supposed to help you out a lot this year. So, when you combine that And also the fact that it's going to be, if they're not able to avoid the contract, $15 million in dead money here. Yeah, there's reasoning for this. And going back and controlling their narrative here, I think there is a lot more to the situation that we both don't know and won't know. I think that they're already come out that the Ravens kind of defensive counsel, at once Terrell Suggs and Eric Weddle left the Ravens after the 2018 season. We kind of didn't really have a real defensive leader on that team. So we kind of had a whole kind of council here, including Anthony Levine, Patrick Owasso, who's now on the Jets. You had Tony Jefferson, who's now a free agent, safety, by the way. You had Matthew Judon, who's obviously still there. Brandon Williams, obviously still there. Well, that defensive council all kind of came together, and they all agreed that this would have been the right move to make. The safety room has reportedly wanted this for a little while now as well. Yeah. This was a long, long time coming in Baltimore, and I'm telling you, this is a thing, and there's a saying in sports, the locker room is stronger than one guy, right? So when the locker room is being threatened by one guy, the right move to do is to get rid of that one guy, and that's what the Ravens have done. They have officially released him. And before we get into, actually, here we go. We have right here. This is a statement from Earl Thomas right now. I'm going to read this. All right. I appreciate the Ravens organization and the opportunity. Had a great run. Wish things would have ended in a different way. Wish things would have ended different, but you live and learn. Thank you, Eric DaCosta, and everyone else who played a role in bringing me to be more. Wish you guys the best. That is a statement from former Ravens safety Earl Thomas. There you go. So, yeah. Now we're going to get into, first of all, Earl is a player, okay? He was a Pro Bowler last year. Probably over the last 10 years, he's probably been the best overall safety in the NFL over that time span. This is a very, very good player. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. All right. If his career is over right now, let's say hypothetically, and I don't believe this will happen, but hypothetically, let's say no one's going to sign him and he retires, which I'd be shocked if that's the case, but let's say that happens. No, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. But I think if he has a few more years left in him and he plays at a decently high level, which I would expect him to do, yeah, he's probably going to be on his way to Canton. This is a great player here we're getting rid of. But he is 31 years old. He is 2 years removed from a broken leg. And this is man, my voice keeps doing that. It's a very messy situation here that he has got himself into. And again, he doesn't have charges on him, but he's involved in a legal situation with his brother and his wife that I am willing to bet had a little bit more to do with this release than people realize. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to be what happens with him, and that's really all I have to say about that. But now we get on to what the Ravens do from here, okay? Now, you look at it, there are not very many free agent safeties out there that not very many free safeties, I should say. So, to me, the Ravens have two options. One is they're going to start a guy, and this is the one I think is more likely, is that they start Deshaun Elliott. Deshaun Elliott, for non-Ravens fans or Ravens fans that don't really know the team that well, is a, what was he, 7th or 6th? Elliott he was a 6th, right? Yeah, he was a 6th-round pick back in 2018 by the Ravens out of Texas, who actually fell on the draft. He was expected to be a mid-round pick, and we got him in round 6 as a steal. And unanimous All-American back at Texas. He was a great, great player in college, but he's really struggled with health at the NFL level. His rookie year was cut short before the season even started with a fractured forearm. And then last season, he had a knee injury that cut his season short again. He's only really played, I think he's played, 6 games? In those 6 games, he hasn't really gotten that many play opportunities, but every time he's been on the field, he has shown some real flashes of being a good player, and I think when healthy, that would be a really good option. I think, and there are a lot of Ravens fans who really, really like him. I really like him. I just have some serious health concerns, though, about him being on the field. That's the issue. But again, when on the field, I actually think he would be a great replacement if he can stay healthy. The other option is bringing in a guy, and now I know Ravens fans are kind of 50-50 on him. Some Ravens fans love him. some Ravens fans love him, some Ravens fans absolutely hate the guy, and that is Brandon Carr, who is currently a free agent. You know him as a corner, so you're thinking, what, is it safety? No. But actually, yes. When Tony Jefferson went down with an injury last year, the Ravens kind of did the same thing they did with Ladarius Webb back in, 2017, 18-ish? Ladarius Webb, who was obviously a corner for the Ravens for a while, but he switched to safety after his corner play, I'm going to be straight up with you, really became below average and not very good. So the Ravens switched him to safety. And he actually kind of had a career renaissance here. He actually played pretty well. I mean, he wasn't a leader, but he played well. He definitely was serviceable. He's a starting caliber safety for the Ravens during that time, pairing up with Eric Weddle. So Brandon Carr last year, the Ravens kind of did the same thing. Brandon Carr's cornerback play was nothing short of really not that good, definitely below average, not really starting caliber. And then once TJ went down, they kind of switched him to safety. And he really, once again, he kind of revitalized his career. And now he is currently a free agent, and he's a guy that I think, if we're talking short term, the Ravens obviously were in win now. We are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. In my opinion, we're the Super Bowl favorites. So you don't need to get a young guy who's going to develop. No. You want a guy who's going to be able to produce immediately. And I think Brandon Carr could be that. He knows the Ravens system. He's been there for the last few years. I would like either one of those two. I'd be all right with both. I think those are the two most likely options. I think those are the two best options for the Ravens now that they obviously won't be able to trade him, as they have now officially released Earl Thomas. So that is what I think the Ravens should do. Now we get on to where could Earl Thomas go? The three teams being rumored right now, the 49ers, the Texans, and then the obvious team, the Dallas Cowboys. We'll start things off with that obvious team, the Dallas Cowboys. They've been rumored. Earl Thomas and Dallas have been linked before Baltimore, and Earl Thomas has been linked. All right. This has been something that I would expect. I think Dallas is going to make a strong run at him. I would be surprised if Dallas does not sign him. And I think the only way Dallas doesn't sign him is if Earl has a change of heart, because they really had a lot of mutual interest before. But hey, mutual interest before, and he still didn't sign with them last time. So hey, you never know. He also almost signed with Kansas City. That's not a team that's mentioned here because they obviously have the Honey Badger there and Tyrann Mathieu. But hey, Tyrann Mathieu over there with Earl Thomas sounds like a pretty good duo there in KC. So we'll see. The only problem, though, with doing that is actually there's two problems. The first problem is the obvious one, is can you afford him? Answer that. No. Question is then, what do you do with Mathieu? Because Matthew's played both free safety and strong safety, so he can switch both. Can they both play together? Because Earl's obviously a free safety, so you don't know. Even though they're two great safeties, they're two top 5 safeties in the NFL. But, so can they both play together? You don't know. They're two big personalities. Can they get along? I'm willing to say no to that. Dallas, I think he would fit. I think he wants to be there, and I think he would play well there. So I think Dallas is the front runner. You look at San Francisco, that's, I think, is the second team that could get him. Can they afford him? Yes. Does he fit? Yes. Would he like to be there? Yes. They're a contending team. You're going to pair him back up with Richard Sherman, who, even though him and Seattle messy breakup, him and Sherman got along very well. So I think Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman in San Francisco, and he would play Seattle twice a year. I looked at San Francisco definitely as an option. And I think the least one, I think Houston is probably the least likely out of the 4 teams that I'm mentioning here that he could go to. I don't think he fits. They can't really afford him. I don't think he wants to be there. I don't really think they want him. So I would say of all these teams, if we're going to rule out one, that's the team to rule out. I'd be very surprised to see if he goes to Houston. So congratulations, Texans fans. You guys just signed Earl Thomas, because that's just, you look at my Andrew Luck for MVP pick last year, for examples. Anyway, Earl Thomas, though, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. And, well, that's all I really got a chance to say. Crazy situation. We'll see what the Ravens do in the safety position and moving forward. Goodbye and go Ravens.